Okay, so I'm sure most of you have heard about the whole Ohio Chernobyl. 'Tis not a laughing matter, but this article came up in my local news, and so I figured we would go over it a little bit, considering those who live in Ohio, are probably pretty concerned about their air quality, and I'm sure it's way worse there. But all of us who are downwind from this are wondering if we're going to have the same kind of issues that those in the immediate vicinity have. I'm not going to read all of this. I'm going to skip through to the most important parts because it gets into, a narrative in certain areas, and we definitely want to stay away from narratives. Just give us the facts, man. It could be March before environmental officials here know if any of the deadly chemicals from last week's train derailment in Ohio reached Maine. But even if they did end up here, it's likely in amounts too small to present a health hazard. So they do explain in this that Maine, pretty much New England area, is the tailpipe area. So we're expected to get this. That downwind location is why Maine is often referred to as the tailpipe of the nation, according to Jeff Crawford, director of the Maine Bureau of Air Quality. This is from the same man, if we monitored elevated levels of vinyl chloride last week, these levels would most certainly be detected by our analytical lab with respect to specific health concerns or impacts from vinyl chloride. So Maine monitors its air for a number of hazardous air pollutants, including the 4 identified from the Ohio derailment. Samples are collected in Presque Isle, Bangor, Lewiston, Rumford, Portland, and South Portland. Results from monitors in Pennsylvania have not shown any elevated levels of the toxins so far, Crawford said. He has not yet seen any data from any monitors in Ohio. I think that part's very important, considering Ohio you would think would be right on top of it. But Pennsylvania is not seeing any elevated levels. So in saying this, we are going to cover the governor. He did a press conference, I guess because of so much pressure from the public. Hey, what's going on? We're going to go watch that press conference. I know this is kind of mean, but back in the day, and I mean 100 years ago, kind of back in the day, they would actually look at people's faces and determine by their resting face how intelligent they were. Let's just say I'm already not impressed. So the comment that we're going to go with the body language on this, he's already in stress. He's looking around nervously, but he's staying tight to himself, and he's got the freaking believe me look plastered to his forehead. It's not coming down. Nobody's talking to him. Nobody's doing anything. They're just setting up their show and tell. This stress is coming into the meeting. It's like, okay, so is this stress related to this incident? Is this stress related to something else? I'm going to assume that it's related to the incident.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're holding this press conference today really to bring people up to date. I know there's still questions about what is going on in East Palestine. We've tried throughout this to continue to inform the public, everyone, but most particularly the people who are directly affected. So today I brought many members of our team together to talk about the current monitoring that's underway, and to really answer any outstanding questions that may still be out there. Today I have experts from the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, the Ohio Department of Health, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, the Ohio Department of Agriculture, Ohio Department of Public Safety, Ohio Emergency Management Agency, the Ohio Department of Transportation, and the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. They are all in the room with me today. Let me go back to February 3rd, 8:55 p.m. when the train wreck occurred. While traveling through East Palestine on
So as you can tell right now, he's just going over his notes, and it doesn't seem like it's a verbatim speech. It's probably bullet points, and he's sticking to them. So we're not really going to see much in this. We are going to skim through it and look for any stressor words that the body knows it's lying about or that it has no idea about.
I had a discussion with the representatives of the railroad, an extended discussion. I brought Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro in that through my cell phone, and we went back and forth for a couple hours, trying to just weigh the risk, one versus the other.
At this point, as he's telling the story, he's given a lot of good eye contact. He is sticking to his bullet points. Obviously, you can tell he's not reading verbatim, but he has written in chronological order how he's going to go. But he's giving you really good eye contact, and he keeps rolling up on his toes as he does it. It's very odd. I'm wondering it's because of his short stance, and he's just used to stepping up to people. I don't know. To me, at this moment, it looks like a nervousness. Obviously, the stressor in the forehead is still there. It's constantly there. He's not moving a whole lot, so no loose movement. We did see the hands go up and down on either side, weighing the options. So he is singing. His body is singing with him. That means truth. So shall we continue?
Risk of the car exploding was described to me as high. High probability that it could explode. And when I pressed everyone to give me the information about, and also give Governor Shapiro the information, she was on the cell phone listening and asking questions, it came back that the concern was that this would be what was described as a catastrophic explosion of the car, which would result in shrapnel going out up to close to a mile. We also looked at what the danger was from a controlled release, which is what the railroad felt should be done. Again, Governor Shapiro and I spent considerable time, up to about 2 hours, I recall, asking a lot of questions about how that would take place. We had the benefit of the Ohio National Guard that had done a modeling exercise. They did that in conjunction with the U.S. Defense Department, who gave them some additional information and help in regard to the modeling. The modeling was then produced into a map I believe that we showed everyone that day when we had our press conference. There was a red area that they described as the likelihood of death within that red area would be very high. There's an area outside that, the yellow area, where they also described it would be very dangerous to be there, but not quite as dangerous as it was within the red area. We then made the decision to go ahead with the second option, which was the controlled release. As that was being prepared to be done, we sent back law enforcement into those zones, the red zone and the yellow zone, for the third time to literally knock on doors. And they described how they did it to me. They did it in very loud, did everything they could do to get, if there's anyone left in that house, to get their attention to come out. That was the third time that those houses, I believe, had been contacted. The individuals in those houses had been contacted. The controlled release did in fact occur. It was, to my understanding, delayed a little bit. There was actually, when we, at 3 o'clock, release was supposed to be at 3:30. We wanted to get everybody out of there. We had members of the Guard and the patrol and others who had the area cordoned off. We told them to leave there at 3 o'clock. Unfortunately, there's a couple cars that came in, and they had to go get them out. of that impacted area, or what would be an impacted area. So the release occurred, as I recall, about 4:15, 4:20, and we were monitoring the air outside that area, and the air continued to be good. Fast forward to the time when we were outside that area.
I rewinded that so I could see the guy that's all dressed up to look like an authority figure in the back, who gave a slight head shake in the positive as he's agreeing with him. We monitored the air quality,
and the air continued to be good.
And then you see him again give a positive in the eye blink, agreeing with him.
Beaver Creek. So we essentially, for our purposes, we looked at 4 different waterways over a space of about 7.5 miles, and what the environmental impacts were on those streams and tributaries.
I mentioned directly what's beyond that as we move towards the Ohio River.
So the North Fork of Beaver Creek leads into Beaver Creek, which I'm lost. I mean, we eventually get down there.
To the Ohio River. So,
yeah, Beaver Creek does go directly into the Ohio River. Yeah, go for it.
so the North Fork of Beaver Creek goes into the main stem of Little Beaver Creek, which is a state scenic river, and then that flows into the Ohio River.
I let this play for a little bit too long just because it was kind of comical. But you see how she's moving. Her body's really loose, but it's nervous because it just keeps doing it. She's semi-animated. It's the head kind of bobs to one side with the body going in the opposite direction. It's like it's swimming. And you got this guy, he's like prancing around nervously. He keeps going back to the map. He's looking up and down. He's trying to get correct information out. And you could tell just because of how much he's digging and trying to be very specific on what he's saying. And I'm assuming that's the governor's voice I'm hearing in the background telling them, tell them what's beyond that. Or you step up to the mic and you tell them.
So that's the essential.
And there you again, another example of her nervousness. Her hand throws out twice and then folds itself in front before her mouth opens because her hand wants to talk before the mouth opens.
Geography we were looking at for this, and the Department of Natural Resources, part of our mission is to preserve and improve Ohio's biodiversity. So our concern in this case was what was happening with the aquatic wildlife. And what we have discovered through the testing and sampling that's been done is that very early on, we have estimated, based on our sampling and modeling, about 3,500 dead fish across that space, across those streams, tributaries, waterways, 12 different species. The good news is that none of those species are threatened or endangered, but that is still a loss of wildlife, so of concern, especially when we reach the Beaver Creek, this state wild and scenic river, where we are especially protective of what we have there. So some of the species, creek chub, mottled sculpin, stone roller, I think we have some pictures somewhere of what those are, but 12 different species, none threatened or endangered, but still a loss of life all the same. The one species we will be looking for, we have no evidence yet that any have died, but this is really an area of focus for hellbenders, which are federal and state endangered. And so we will be doing some monitoring in the months to come to see if any of them did die in the initial release into the waterways. So good news, there doesn't appear to be any increase in the fish or aquatic creatures killed since the first couple days of the derailment.
And as she says this part, which to me is probably the most important, because it's like, well, if it's getting worse, that would be really bad. So her saying there isn't any increase, the whole body is doing the positive movement.
Hello, I'm Tiffany Kavalek. I'm the Chief of the Division of Surface Water at Ohio EPA. And speaking of the derailment on February 3rd, we speak that it occurred at the location of Sulphur Run. And Norfolk and Southern are actively aerating Sulphur Run and have containment within the 1.3 miles that Sulphur Run leads into Leslie Run. Sulphur Run remains contaminated, but we're confident that it is contained.
So she's got the believe me look on this, but she is moving her body. At this point, it's more of hopium. I think I got it all. There's no active deception in that. I think it's working. And at this point, that's all I'm getting from all of these people. I think it's okay. I think it's working. And then I'm just going to reference you back to the article I read today. Good Lord. I read it this morning. I did read it today. The article that I read at the beginning of this video. I am not a chemist. I have no idea how far these chemicals can travel via air without falling to the ground or be in the water without degrading. And the same thing with the air. I think that is the formula for a chemist to comment on. The only advice I have is to go to your local air quality area, especially if you're downwind of this thing, which seems to be the Northeast, and just start monitoring with the people that are monitoring.
A lot of you guys have been asking me what the water looks like around East Palestine. Is there any dead fish, anything like that? Personally, I have not seen anything. I've went to multiple locations and I've yet to see anything myself. But while I'm here, I'll show you guys what the water looks like where I'm at right now.
If you like it, please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
If you'd like to learn more about analysing body language, there is a video course available on Mandy's website for Gold subscribers.